This is a drawing by Wade. He's 4.5 years old, and he's the son of a good friend of mine. He told me it's a robot with a ton of eyes and long arms with punching gloves. And honestly, that's all I really needed to hear. Let's see how we ended up with this crazy mech version. When I was a kid, I used to draw stuff just like this. Crazy robots with big claws, lots of eyes, a bunch of spikes. It wasn't random, it just felt right. Somewhere along the way we grow up and we start calling it composition or design language, but at that age it's just instinct. You're just trying to make a super cool robot. So today I wanted to channel some of that energy again and just build something wild. So let's see Wade's drawing again. At first glance it kind of looks like a hairy meatball with claws, which to be fair already sounds fantastic. He didn't mention anything about the legs, but from what I see it's a great opportunity to make something really cool and creepy. And those long arms with punching gloves, that's the main feature of the mech. I wanted to exaggerate that. Make something big and tough, industrial, and that kind of feels too heavy for the body. Something that even if it doesn't look like punching gloves, it should be able to punch through a wall with no problem. So we're also going to be pulling inspiration from big trucks and excavators. And when I was a kid, I was obsessed with heavy machinery and excavators and stuff like that. Still am, honestly. But more specifically, snowplow machines were my favorite. Growing up in Canada, we have these massive ones that can just eat through snow like it was nothing. And I used to watch them clear the streets. I'd sit by the window and watch them go by. They were slow and loud, that make the ground rumble. They just felt unstoppable. That feeling really stuck with me, and it's something that I like to bring a lot into my designs. The sense of weight and just big mechanical thing. To me, that's just so cool. And a good way to translate that into our design is with the proportions and the stance. You probably heard me say it if you watch some of my other videos, but the way the legs are placed and how the mech sits on the ground brings a lot of personality and weight to our design. I'm also bringing a lot of mass into the torso and head. I'm using a big round shape that kind of echoes the meatball vibe that we had from the drawing. I'm trying to interpret the shapes, but still linking them to something that's recognizable. All the spikes or lines become antennas or sensors. All the eyes turn into surveillance cameras. It's a good way to add a lot of contrast with the reflectiveness on the camera glass. I'm trying to take all those loose, organic ideas and reimagine them as mechanical components. I'm not trying to copy the drawing literally, but I'm trying to translate it, turning that raw imagination into something that feels real, but still keeping the spirit of the drawing intact. For example, the face isn't a sphere like in Wade's drawing, but it still carries that rounded shape and that sense of volume. I still want the design to feel angular and industrial, but overall the silhouette needs to stay kinda round and meatball-y. Basically like one big rounded mass with a bunch of edges built into it. What's fun about Wade's drawing is that it isn't bogged down by any expectations of what a robot should look like. When we get older, the world starts to feel more rigid and there's more rules. There's more it should look like this and fewer what if it looked like that. And all that stuff, it weighs on your imagination. You start designing based on what feels correct instead of what feels fun. We saw that in the last video. I mean, some people were really upset that we changed the design, that I took liberties with something that feels familiar to them. But that's kind of the whole point. Like this time we're taking this exercise to an extreme, starting from a kid's drawing that's something completely unfiltered. And honestly, the only person who's really allowed to be mad if I miss this one is Wade. The adult world is already grim as it is. Let's try to keep the fun in our games, you know? It's easy to forget that all of this, like the sculpting, the drawing, the creating, it's all started as play. It was never meant to be perfect. Somewhere along the way, we start chasing what is quote unquote right. Wade doesn't care about engineering or lore accurate designs or color theory. He just wants a robot with tons of eyes and big arms. And maybe that's what we really need sometimes, is less control and more imagination. A reminder that this whole thing only works if we're still having fun. When you're designing, think about what actually brings you joy. What did you love as a kid? What did you think was fun? For me, it was things like transforming animals from Beast Wars, or Beyblade, or Robot Wars, you know. Whatever that was for you, try working it back into your own designs. Not just the nostalgia, but the feeling you had back then. Translating feelings into art is really hard, and sometimes it's not even clear to you, the person making it. You just know that something about it feels right. But if it's genuine enough, it comes across and people can feel it, even if they can't explain why. That's the main reason people can spot a corporate, lifeless design or story a mile away. It's missing that honest spark. And even somebody that doesn't know anything about design or art, they can feel that something was made to hit a quota or to appeal to a certain market versus made from a genuine place of excitement. So how do you actually bring that into your work? For me, it starts with paying attention to what makes me feel something whenever I'm working. Like if I catch myself going, "Oh, hell yeah, that's cool." That's the thread I kind of follow. I try to design from that gut reaction instead of logic at first, because you can always bring back logic and function on top of it afterwards. You can make sure joint fit and make sense and the balance and all that stuff is good. But if you start with logic, you kill the fun before it even begins. Let the imagination lead first and let reason clean up afterwards. That's how you keep the soul in it. It's a balance between what makes sense and what makes you smile. Instead of pointing out what's wrong, try to make something that feels right. It doesn't need to follow the rules yet. It just needs to have that spark. It could be a color or a shape, a song or a story you imagine in your head. Whatever sparks that feeling, don't filter it out. Build around it. Once you got that, you can layer all the reasoning and engineering you want. And honestly, if a piece of art brings even a small spark of joy to someone, that's already a net positive in the world. And we all need more of that. That's the main reason why I chose video games as a career. I could have easily went into industrial design and worked for a defense company or something, but video games brought joy into my life when I was a kid. They still do. They made me dream, they made me imagine things that I didn't think were possible. So now I get to pass a bit of that same feeling forward. That's what makes all of this worth doing. It's the fact that it sparks something real in someone. And that's where it all connects back to design. It's the balance between imagination and function. I still love the technical side of it, like the engineering and the problem solving. There's this book I keep coming back to, and it's Ismojuki Industrial Divinities. It's basically a catalog of fictional utility robots. That's what I mainly reference for this project. You can kind of see it in the claws. It's very playful, but it's believable. You can almost imagine them being just parked outside a factory or picking up containers on the dock. To me, that's kind of where the sweet spot is, where childlike imagination meets industrial logic. I've got a ton of books like this. Crazy mech stuff for concept art, Japanese catalogs, and just a ton of stuff. I'd love to share more of them in an upcoming video if that's something you guys would be into. There's so much good inspiration hiding in there. Stuff that reminds you why designing robots is just fun. This is the strange part about all of this. It's how quickly art gets quantified. We take something creative, something that starts as play or imagination, and we assign it a number, like a price or a metric. Like, how good is it? How valuable is it? How fast can you make one? And I get it. That's the system we work in. It's how studios are run, and it's how clients think. It's how people justify budgets. But there's a real cost to that mindset. Because the more you try to quantify art, the easier it is to forget what made us want to make it in the first place. You can't really measure joy or imagination. But that's the part that makes it worth doing. That's why I always had a hard time with the idea of the right way to do something. The more you work in this industry, the more you hear it. It's like the pipelines and the standards and the right way to design and to paint and to model and all that stuff. Like the right way to think. And sure, some of that exists for a reason. It keeps things consistent and it keeps studios and teams moving. But creatively, it can box you in really fast. Because once you start chasing the right way, you kind of stop exploring your own way. And maybe that's just the cost of turning something as abstract as art into a product. Especially in your personal work. I hear people say often that they feel paralyzed when they try to make art. Like they get really anxious. They feel a lot of pressure when they're trying to make something great right away. But personal work is the best place to break out of that. Because there's no brief, there's no approval, there's no expectation. You can just make whatever you want, however you want. And if you struggle with that, like if the pressure of performance creeps in, try to take a step back from it. Make something small, make something weird. Make it for the pure fun of it with no plan of sharing or posting it. With time, you start to build confidence. You start to realize that paralyzing fear fades once you stop trying to prove something and just try to feel something instead. The skill follows, it always does. At the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. Keeping the fun in the work. You don't need permission to make something cool. You don't need a perfect plan. Whether it's a kid's drawing or a personal project or a full-scale production, the goal is always the same. To stay curious and to stay playful. You just need that spark that makes you want to open the software or grab a pen, put on your headset and start sculpting. And if along the way you make something that brings even a little joy into the world, that's a win. And that's enough. Anyway, thanks for sticking by. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.